VIGILANT Broadcasting, the station of opportunity, presents The Chronicles of Doing Too Much with your host, Angel Riley.
Hello, and good evening. Welcome to tonight's episode of The Chronicles of Doing Too Much. I'm your host, the one and only Angel L. Riley, and I am so excited to be here tonight. So, guys, we are going to have another unscripted, candid conversation about a topic that I consider a very scary topic. And I'm kind of loving just kind of not being structured right now with some of these topics, because I think that it allows for us to have just a little bit more clarity and truths. And we talked a lot about owning our truths and where we're going and how life looks for us. And if we are striving to live our best life and we're striving to build that solid foundation and have that circle of influence that's going to only be contributing to taking us to the next level, we have to have the scary topics, the candid conversations, and being completely vulnerable and honest and open with one another. So tonight's topic is about our finances. We have to get our finances right. I mean, we just had so many series of very valuable topics. Toxicity, sometimes toxic behavior can be not managing our finances correctly and having control or lack of control based on finances. We spent a lot of time on toxicity because I think that's a factor that is a challenge for many of us. So I'm excited that we went through that series of topics. But when it comes down to the finances and we're looking at what type of power moves we're going to make, when we're looking at setting up and funding our vision, we have to make sure that sometimes we have that capital to do it. So I'm going to start out with being vulnerable, being transparent, but I'm also going to talk about some areas of growth for me and some goals that I have. And with me being vulnerable and transparent, I'm hoping that, really connect and resonate with you guys, or I'm just going to be on international radio embarrassing myself tonight. So I have to confess, my name is Angel Riley, and sometimes I'm afraid to look at my bank account. And it's not because there's a lack of money. It's not because there's an overflow of money. But sometimes I'm afraid to look at the finances and compare them to what my expenses are, because sometimes it gives me a feeling of failure or a feeling of lack or, just needing more. Sometimes it makes my palms sweaty. Sometimes it makes my heart beat faster. Sometimes I get some sweat in the underarm glands, and I just want to walk away. I don't want to take a look at it. I don't want to think about it. I have to just imagine and hope that there's enough to take care of the basic necessities, the bills. So I said it. I have said it for a very long time in my life. Looking at my bank accounts, looking at my financial picture was scary. And I can't really, I just have to say maybe it's a fear of lack or whatever. I don't know, but there was a fear. And I would just be so afraid. My bills were paid. I didn't have any utilities cut off. I didn't have, I never faced eviction or an opportunity where I was going to lose my house because something wasn't paid. I never really found myself in that situation. Have I made some poor financial choices throughout my lifetime? Absolutely. Do I sometimes still make some poor choices? Of course, because no one's perfect, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be. But how many of us have that same fear? How many of us could be bold enough to come out and admit I can't believe I just admitted this on an international radio show of where I was, but how many of us can be bold enough to admit it to ourselves? Be bold enough to own our truth and to claim it, that finances are scary. And I will follow all of these financial gurus. My favorite is Susie Orman. OMG. I love Susie Orman, and I used to watch her show, her on the cable network all the time, and see how people were approved or denied. And I would sit and watch that show and try to figure out, how are they 23 years old with $30,000 in the bank? What are they doing? They must not have any life. Or why are they 62 years old and only got $100,000 in retirement? Oh my gosh, what's going on? But I would love to watch Susie Orman and listen to the little tidbits. And from watching her for so many years and being faithful to her show, I was picking up little financial habits and financial takeaways and nuggets that I didn't even realize that I had started to implement. And she had a couple of shows, if I can remember, and I can't give you direct quote content of what she said, but she had a couple of shows where she talked about, those of us who had a fear of looking at our money, those of us who had a fear of truly sitting down and setting a budget. Well, I have to tell you guys, there was a point in my life where I went through total financial devastation. And it was just a thing where it's like, wow, how did I get here? I had this huge salary, no children. How did I get to this point where I had this total financial devastation? And I had to hit the reset button. And I promised myself at that time that I would never find myself in that situation again. And one of the first things that I learned in the series of financial courses that I was taking was you had to sit down and you had to set a budget. You had to set a budget. You had to take control and look at your finances. So it's great to have this wonderful radio show to talk about being boss, to talk about launching our own businesses, to talk about making power moves, to talk about living our best life possible. But there is an ease in life when your financial situation is good. So the first step and the first tip that I'm going to give tonight is face your fear. Own it up. Own your truth. I owned right here that there was a time in my life that I was afraid to look at my finances. I was afraid to look at how much money I had or did not have in the bank. So the first step is to own that truth and say, this is the fear I have. And if you can, try to identify it. Even if you don't want to talk to anyone, write it down. Journaling is great to get things out because, you write it down, you make it real. So write it out. What was that fear? What's that fear? What's causing that? Is it your environmental? Is it, your upbringing? Is it cultural? Anything can put you in a place of fear. Because I know I certainly had it. I told you guys, my hands were sweaty, my palms would get sweaty, my heart would beat faster, I'd be dripping, as I would say, under my arm. It was truly fear. And there's not much that scares me in that type of context, but looking at my bank account and trying to figure out if I have enough, it was scary. So that's the first thing, is kind of owning your truth with your financial picture. Second step is budgeting. You are not going to make a power move. You are not going to go to that next level. You are not going to do anything if you don't sit down and set a budget. Now, I'm being transparent tonight. It is hard for me to sit down and write out a budget. But what I do and what works for me is that as my bills come in, I organize my bills based on their due date. And then instead of me having like a set monthly budget and say this is for utilities, this is for mortgage, this is for car, instead of me doing stuff like that, I basically budget by the week. So I say I have this amount of money coming in for the week. Here are the bills that are due for that week. Let me pay those bills at the beginning of the week because I don't want anything to be late. Let me pay those bills at the beginning of the week. So it's a little untraditional way of budgeting, but it's an excellent way for me in my personal situation of facing my fear of not enough. Because as I was going through owning my truth of what was causing me so much anxiety when looking at my bank account, it was because I was looking at this great big number. And, and it's funny because for 17 years I managed political action committees, and I would do millions and millions of dollars. So I can reconcile, I can do financial disclosure reports, I can talk about some laws pertaining to campaign finance. I mean, it's so much I could do, but when it got down to my little bank account, I could not do any of that. So the skill set definitely is there. I could do forecasting and projections and strategies and fundraising plans. It's amazing. I've raised millions of dollars, during my course of my career. And it's just one of those things where I could do all of that at the 9 to 5 and in corporate America, but I could not. I had a fear of looking at my little bank account. It's funny now coming out and saying it, but it was the truth. I was so afraid. So when I came up with my idea of, okay, let me look at everything week by week. Let me chop this down into something more manageable. I basically took my skill set that I had, when I was working with campaign finance and working with political action committees, when I did fundraising strategies or when we start doing projections, we would do them by election cycle, which was 2 years in America, or if we're going to do it by month or by quarter, or how do we get there, what type of growth do we need to see. So you will break it down into more manageable means and easier to report to higher level executives. So since you are essentially the CEO or whatever your goals are, this was a good way for me to look at my financial picture and break it down into something that was more manageable for my high-level CEO-ness. I love when I make up words. So that's the second thing. So you have to budget. So it doesn't matter what that budget looks like. Some people like to get a format and they follow that format. You go for it. Other people are like, okay, well, how can I do this into something that's manageable and works for me? And I'm all about customizing because I do better when I customize something that fits my lifestyle, and I'm going to stick to it. It takes 21 days to build a habit. So 21 days is essentially 3 weeks. I was stuck on this method that I did of just saying, let me budget week by week. I was stuck on that method after I did it for 3 weeks. And now here we are many years later, and many just means more than 3. So don't think I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm not that old, okay, guys? But here I am, several years, many years. It just means more than 3 years, more than 3 years later. Now, definitely, if you really need something more structured, go to Dr. Google. That's what I call it, the Google search engine, and just put up, home budgets. One of the things that I like to do once a year, Michelle Singletary, she was a columnist for the Washington Post. She does the financial ministry of First Baptist Church of Glenarden in Maryland. And she's highly decorated, a very good financial guru, local to the Washington, D.C. area, which you all know I'm from. But she has a 21-day financial fast. It's a book. I actually purchased the book on my Amazon Audible. And she basically, pretty much like a financial devotion. So every day she kind of covers a topic, and then she compares it to the biblical principles of what it says in the Bible for that topic. And then you have a task to complete for that particular day. And I love this, and it's not like David Ramsey is another good financial guru to follow, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of his strategies. But Michelle Singletary is pretty much the same. And the fast is just like any other spiritual fast that you're doing, it's all about sacrifice. And I love her 21-day financial fast because she's talking about the biblical principles of, being good stewards of our finances. And when we're good stewards of our finances, how God continues to bless those finances. But I love that she has a chapter about budgeting. The thing that I love about her book is that she has a lot of free resources, some that she's done custom, others where she links you to other people's work that's copyrighted. It's a 21-day financial fast. And when I did it the first time, she had like a huge thing on Twitter where we would tweet about it, and she was like responding to my tweets. I mean, I feel like we're good friends. I never met the woman, only did her fast a few years actually, so more than 3 times. But it's wonderful. And the thing that I love about her 21-day financial fast is at the end, she always talks about, just like with everything, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to get to a point where you're being extremely greedy. So you could do it 1 month, and then you might wait a couple of more months before you do it. I normally try to do it once a year. Normally April is my month. So we're coming up on that month next week. So starting Monday, I will be on my 21-day financial fast. And it is just a thing where you will be amazed at how much money you save when you stop spending money just because. And the other thing about April, and the reason that I choose April, not because it's 30 days, but April is also Financial Literacy Month. So just for the different things that I look at, too, for empowerment and self-development, I get a lot of information in my email box, on my Facebook, on my other social media channels about financial literacy. So April just is a month that makes sense for me. April is also the month because I'm one of the people in the U.S. that wait until the last minute to do their taxes. And normally, your taxes are normally due April 15th. So April is a month because, at one point, many years ago, I would owe federal income tax. To now, with, having my direct sales business and making some really smart financial choices, I don't owe federal income tax. So a lot of times I get a nice refund that I can invest into my business, or I break even. But for some reason, I always wait until April to get that stuff done. So for me, April has a good meaning. So if you do any type of financial fast or you try to start a new financial program, I highly recommend finding a month that will have meaning for you. So the same way that I choose the month of April is the same way that you can choose different months for yourself. And we're going to have a lot of information about just financial literacy during our episodes in April anyway, because I just think that's just something that's very, very important, especially when we're talking about living our best lives possible. Because it is, when you don't have the stress of finances, let me tell you, everything else is so much easier. And you don't have to have a large abundance. You don't have to have a huge overflow to have the release of finances, have the release of financial stress. You, just by some of the things that we're going to talk about, during the month of April, you're going to start building cushions and not even realize that you have those cushions. It's just by doing little small changes. But those small changes all start with doing that budget. So third, okay, so that takes us right into that third strategy of small changes. So do you see how all of this is just kind of adding up, all right? Small changes. So, one of the things, so with the 21-day financial fast with Michelle Singletary, and it also backs up to what Dave Ramsey, who is a very well-known financial literacy professional, several people follow his various methods, and he has a host of books. When I lived in Texas, I would like to go to Half Price Books, and you can get several Dave Ramsey books out of Half Price Books for like $2 and $3. Get on Amazon. I highly recommend Dave Ramsey. He is awesome. But one of his methods and one of his strategies is about living on a cash-only system. So like with Michelle Singletary, she's basically like, honey, you fasting. You're only going to spend money on the essentials. The essentials are, do you have gas? Are your bills paid? That's it. We're not eating out. And you can't. And with Michelle's fast, you can't even circumvent the policy. You can't circumvent the fast. So you can't say, well, I'm dating a man and he's going to take me out to dinner and he's going to pay for it. No, that's not a fast. Having someone else pay for something for you, it circumvents. That makes you break the fast. So this is, for those of us who are spiritual, it is truly a commitment to God. I actually do a prayer prior to my fast, and then at the end of the 21 days, I do that prayer to break my fast. So that way you're really in agreement to God. And there's one person that I try not to disappoint on purpose, and that's God. So we can talk more about that when we're doing financial fast. I might even bring in some special guests who are more well-versed in those areas than I, because I'm just sharing personal experiences. But small changes. So that is hard. It is hard when you're making those small changes. But Dave Ramsey talks about setting a cash budget for the week. And, so he might say, or for the month, or whatever it is, how you're using, but I do everything in weeks because it's just easier for me. But with Dave Ramsey, he might say, okay, you have $60 to spend for the entire week on, everything. So you get that $60 cash, you're going to lock up your ATM debit card, all your credit cards, all that stuff, and you're going to live just off of, for the extras, not talking about your bills and stuff, but you're going to live off of those extras only on that $60. And he has the thing where you can put it in jars, and it helps you to track your spending. Now, you could be like me, I can't do cash because cash goes so fast for me, so that's why I use my card so much. But let me tell y'all, when I'm fasting and I'm doing cash, I'm paying attention to every single dollar that I'm spending, because I know once that cash that's in my wallet is gone, I'm done for the week. So I'm going to opt to make that coffee at home versus going to get a soy chai latte at Cosi. I'm going to make sure that I'm cooking dinner every single night versus stopping to grab something from a fast food restaurant. I'm a woman who loves my martinis. I love my glass of wine. I have a very stressful 9 to 5, and sometimes then having a glass of wine or having a martini or two, if they're good, those are really good ways, in addition to having my candle and my space and my music. All those are good ways to help me unwind. But I make sure that I have all the ingredients and all the stuff to do that at my home. So I can make my own martini at home, or vodka cranberry, whichever I choose, whatever tickles my fancy for the moment. Or I can pour my own glass of wine at home. Because a bottle of wine, I might pay $27 or so for my bottle of wine, but I'm getting about 6 to 8 glasses for that $27 versus paying the $12 and $13 to go to a nice restaurant to get that same wine for just one glass. So you're going to look at things like that and start making those small changes. That will add up. If you go to a coffee shop every morning to buy a coffee and you're spending $3, $4, $5, $6 on that coffee, you just multiply that by 5, which is a work week, and say $5. That's $25 in a week. You go to the local grocery store, say you spend $10 on getting, the ingredients for that coffee for the week. Now you done just saved $15. You see how that small change just made that big impact? $15 in a week in 1 month, that's $60. Think about what bill do you have that $60 can cover completely? What bill do you have that $60 can go towards? That credit card debt. So you're not sacrificing. You're not losing out. But what you're doing is just making a small change that builds into a bigger impact. I'm a couponer. When I started to coupon, it was out of necessity, and then it just turned into just a way of life. And it's nothing better. Let me tell you guys, coupon can be addicting because when you have that deal, that savings, and you walk out that store with all of this stuff and you barely spent any money, it feels like, man, I just robbed this store legally, Coupons are dollars to me, okay? I can get crazy with some coupons. But those small changes, so for instance, I went couponing last Friday, I got, let me count it, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 6 things of laundry detergent. I got a 6-roll pack of a brand name paper towel. I got a 12-roll pack of a brand name toilet paper. And I got a 6 double-roll pack of a brand name toilet paper. And then I got 4 room fresheners. I spent $28 for all of that total. 2 stores, coupons, sale, and then one of the stores in one of the local drugstores, I was able to stack coupons by using my manufacturer coupons I walked in there with and the coupons that were available to me in the store and for that store. So I was able to get even more money off of those products. And then 2 of my laundry detergents I purchased, they were on sale. I thought I had coupons at home to go back and get money off, but I didn't. So I actually paid full price, which were the sale price for 2 of my laundry detergents. So I could have spent less than that $28, but I didn't. But when you look at what the regular price for all of that stuff was, because I invested the time into paying $3.50 for a Sunday paper and then did about 2 hours total of getting prepared for that haul, look at all that money I saved. That's a lot. Of laundry detergent's expensive. So to say, you can spend $28 alone just with laundry detergent, I got 6 plus a lot more. So you make those small changes. So those are going to be my tips for tonight because I can go on and on and on about getting your finances right, But the number one thing is owning your fear, owning your truth about your finances. Sometimes our truth about our finances is that we just don't have enough. It's not that we aren't being, thrifty. It's not that we're doing our best to lower our expenses. We just don't have enough. Well, that's when you have to have that tough conversation to say, well, what do I need to do extra? Do I need to get a new job that's going to pay me more? Do I need to get a second job? Or, with me, I'm always going to say, do I need to sacrifice and invest in the direct sales business? Because that's part of my why. I know exactly how much money I need to make every single month. I thank God for my direct sales business because it has grown into something that I did not imagine. And, I've been in this business for 3 years. For the month of February, my pay for my team actually finally equaled a 1-week pay from my 9-to-5. So I essentially got a 5th paycheck this month when I got paid from the direct sales. How much does that, if you can get a full week paycheck, which was, my net, not my gross, is what I got after my taxes and other expenses came out, can you imagine what that does to your financial picture? It's something I invested $99 in 3 years ago. Come on now. So we'll talk about more about that, during Financial Literacy Month. But the first thing is kind of owning your truth. If you have a fear about your finances, or looking at your finances or taking control, really kind of think about that. Talk about that. You have to own it. And once you own it, now you know what you need to work against, Second thing that you want to do is set a budget. All right? Whatever works best for you, whether you need it to be formal, not formal, you have to set a budget. Use some resources to set a budget. And then the third thing you want to do is start to take small steps, small changes. So doing a financial fast, following a David Ramsey plan. Tiffany Alashay, the budgetnista, she has the Live Richer Challenge. I've done that. Amazing. She talks about accountability partnerships, the side hustle. That's why she was the reason I went into direct sales. I had a different side hustle, but why I added direct sales to my side hustle was because of doing the Living Rich Challenge, from Tiffany Alashay. So making those small changes, having kind of everything goal-oriented. And we'll talk about more of that next week because I really want to talk about financial goals in more detail and spend a full 30 minutes of our show talking about that. But we're getting prepped up We're getting prepared. We're going to launch Financial Literacy Month and things. All of our episodes next month are going to be about financial literacy, getting our finances right. But we're going to start with just those 3 steps. So thank you, guys. I so had fun tonight. Tonight's show went by quickly. I can't believe it. But I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to share with you some things of how to get our finances right. And as we go into the month of April, we're going to continue to make this right, because in May, I want to start hearing all about your power moves. I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great week and weekend. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you define your own success. Believe you can do it, build a solid foundation, know your circle, and soar. Until next time.